Hello there, and welcome to this ALPS webinar. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Sue, and I am going to take you through the next 45 minutes, and we're going to look at, we call it judgment grades, quality assurance, and I'll go through what I mean by that in a moment. Before I start, I've got my colleague John Phillip with me today, who many of you may know. And he is ready and able to answer any questions that you have. So you should see, as part of the webinar package, a control panel, and there's a space in there where you can ask questions, and John will do his utmost to answer your questions today. So please do keep him busy. Just a couple of things from me. We will, as a matter of course, email you a recording of this webinar at the end. So no need to ask for that. We will email you that. Hopefully you find it useful in looking at the following things. So we're going to look at Connect Interactive in just a moment, and I'm going to take you through how you might start to determine and quality assure your judgment grades. I can't do an extensive search of different issues and queries that you might have, but I'm going to give you a kind of whistle-stop tour through some of the grade points and various things that you might want to look at. I'm also going to be a bit naughty, and I'm going to show you a couple of new features that we've been developing in the last couple of weeks since we entered this sort of new phase of judgment grades, and those are going to be with you imminently. So I'm going to give you a sneaky peek of those today so that you can see how you might start to use them. So effectively then, in today's webinar, I'm going to look at using Connect Interactive, putting some judgment grades in, and then looking at how you might quality assure. Now, down the bottom here, I've just got a link to a support page, which you can get to from your home page on Connect Interactive, and I will show you that link when we pop into there in just a moment. Okay. Now, we've got a few other webinars that are happening. So if you are brand new to us today, the purpose of this webinar today is not for me to go through the methodology or the tools in Connect. I'm going to assume that you know Connect and you know ALPS methodology. If you do not, then don't fret. I will do a follow-up webinar. I think the next one's on Thursday. So book via our website, and I will go through sort of basics of methodology and basics of Connect. Okay, so get yourselves booked onto that one. If you are brand new too, and you're responsible for submitting data, then we have got twice a week, we've got data webinars. You missed one earlier, or you might have been on it. I think again, the next one of those is on Thursday, but the website will give you that information. So do please get yourself onto that one to show you how you might do the sort of minimum data submission to get the most out of Connect. Righto, so by judgment grades, I'm really going to talk about the centre assessed grades that the government are now calling those grades. And those are the ones that you are going to submit graded and ranked to the exam boards as your final teacher assessment. All right, so that's what I mean by a judgment grade. And if I do refer to calculated grades, those are the ones that are going to come back at you. Those are the grades that the exam boards are going to publish as results for your students. Okay, so those are the two things that I'm going to talk about. I've mentioned the data webinars, but if you are new, then you would want to have some basics in there. Clearly, you'd want to have your current cohort of students in there, along with the monitoring point or an in-year tracking point as your sort of start point for your judgments. You may very well want last year in there too. And as I go through this webinar, I am going to sort of pop into various grade points that I've got in my demo data. and you might want to replicate those. If you're sitting in the beautiful position today where you have got lots of data in there because you've been with us for some time, then obviously you can pick and choose those at your leisure. They give you the best comparisons for your judgment grade quality assurance. Right, okay, so at this point, won't jump to the last word slide. I'm going to jump into Connect, okay? Right then, so this is my homepage on Connect Interactive, and I am going to just show you a couple of things that you might want to look at. So that that support page that I spoke about earlier, it's in this banner that we've just added to the top. So if I click on that, you will see that pops up here is a sort of hidden page on our website. And if I scroll down, it's a step-by-step how do you get the most out of Connect. So step one, get some data in. There's your link to the webinars. There's some short videos of how to use Connect data, which is the data submission side of the package. It's a couple of user guides on either side there. Scroll down further and we've got Connect Interactive. That's a little blog that I wrote on getting the most out of this. Webinar booking here, and then various other opinion pieces that have been written mostly by John that will hopefully help you get the most out of this period of time, and a few videos to help you along, short videos there to help you navigate through Connect. And if I scroll down further, bit of methodology, you can see now a bit of what you might do in July pairing for September for your calculated grades. And this one here, let me just point you in the direction of that workbook, because if you are new and you do like something in front of you, then that might be a good start point to guide you through the features in Connect. Right, okay, I'm going to go back here. A couple of other things. Down here in the resource section, you can see there's a few other bits of material that might be of use to you. ALPS Guide's got all the numbers and all the methodology sitting behind it. Some user guides, as you can see, to get you started. And the knowledge base is our area for, it's got lots of articles, little videos, etc., as does the champions page. The champions page is very similar to that support page I just showed you. Right, okay. I'm going to go into subjects to start with, and just to say that I am going to be using a Year 13 judgment grade trend line today, but regardless of which key stage or which qualification type you're looking at, it's the same. All right, so I'm using key stage 5, but do obviously think that everything that I do is the same across the whole platform. Right then, so I have got here for my Year 13s 4 monitoring points. I've got MP1, which was let's say October time. I did some mocks in January. That's the raw mock grade. I've done some predicting in January, so that's the teacher prediction. And then this is my judgment grade first stab. So it's in effect my draft judgment. And what I've asked staff to do is to, use whatever material we've got, whatever evidence I've got available to determine a realistic and fair judgment grade for each of my students. So I can see a trend line across the academic year of what my Year 13 classes have been doing. And just for those of you who are new to us, to give you a flavour, let me just haul this in for a moment. So ALPS grading works like this. You've got, you've got red is equivalent to progress in the top 25%, and you've got ALPS grade 1 to 3. Blues in the bottom 25% progress, 7, 8, 9, and then broadly national progress is grades 4, 5, 6 in the middle. So in other words, you want to be red, you don't want to be blue in normal times. This is not normal times, so I'll talk about sort of honesty and fairness in a moment. And so each of our indicators in ALPS has a thermometer attached to it, and you can see where the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is sitting in terms of the thermometer. Okay, so just a very quick overview of that. Right then, so let's look at our subject overview, and we can see that we've got some subjects. So let me just start with chemistry there. So chemistry have been predicting across the year fairly strong progress. Grade 2, October, January grade 3, the mock was slightly lower, but it was still a grade 4, which I'd expect my mock grades to be lower, and you will make a judgment call as to how much faith you put in those mock grades when you're determining that judgment grade. But chemistry looks pretty strong across the year, and then suddenly they're predicting me a 5 on the judgment grade front. So my first question really is that fair? Are we being fair to our chemists in predicting that 5? Shall we take a closer look at them? So let's click into chemistry. Now you can see your trend here for your subject, but I'm really interested in my students. Okay, so I'm going to click on my student tab, and then I'm going to just sort by prior attainment, and I'm bringing my highest prior attainers to the top. So what am I looking for here? I'm looking for sort of clear potentially unfairness, or where I might want to question the grades, and I might want to talk to my chemists about, my chemistry teachers about, does that feel right? Is that really what we're saying these students are going to get? Now look at this top bundle of students in my view here. They're all A star megs, okay, and their personalized targets are all A star A, and yet barring one of them, none of them are getting that. So here's my question to my chemistry department is that right? Does that feel that that's a fair grade that they're going to get? Have they done an assessment, for example, very recently, just before before the lockdown? Did they do an assessment that's made you feel, actually, I think they're going to do less well? I guess it's just an idea of asking those questions and making sure that you're being fair. Can we just look at one of these students, for example? If I click on that student, then what I bring up is their card, and across their subjects then they're doing A, B, C. Now I'm also in my head thinking about what their progression route is as well. So this young lady has got potentially some UCAS grades, which she's looking to aspire to, and is ABC is that going to get her there? If I flick back in time, so back in January, from her mock grade predictions, she was ABB. Now that's quite a different feel from ABC chemists, and is that right? So I'm just kind of highlighting to you, the mocks were a little bit lower, but I'm just kind of highlighting to you where you might go and which questions you might ask. Now, I hear you saying, is it possible to see all of that in one view? Because what I'd rather do is, rather than click back on an individual student's previous results and not see them here, please can I see them all together? And the answer to that is yes, you can. Now, this is where I'm going to be naughty, and I'm going to jump to an environment which you do not have yet. And this is our new features, okay? So same bunch of students, I'm hoping, but this time I'm going to go into subject analysis. And when we release this chemistry, when we release this, you will notice that there is a new trend tab that pops up on your screens. Okay, so by clicking on that, hopefully you're going to see something very beautiful. You are going to see all of your students, okay, and you are going to see them as all of these 4 grade points. So it's the same 4 grade points, and you're going to see them all in a line, so you can actually see what that trend looked like across time. Okay, I can sort, there's their prior attainment. I can sort by just clicking in the top of the column. So it's a brand new table with lots of added functionality, which is we're hoping you're going to find really, really useful. But there's student 200 there, look, and there's her card. So B, C for her mocks, that was, and B for the predict, and then a C. So between the January predict and the current judgment grades, she's -1. She's lost a grade, if that makes sense. So this here is the grade difference. Now you can change how that is being measured. So it's always going to be measured on your final or main grade point, which in my case is my judgment grade point. But I can use this drop down to change it and look at how that might happen like that. Okay. So student 200 there, you see, actually that is what she got for the mocks, but you're potentially sort of thinking, well, she probably would have done a lot more work for the final exam than she would have done for that mock, so that might be a bit harsh to her, and in actual fact she's an A-star student. So let's talk again about her her judgment grade, her final judgment grade. So I hope that's helpful. The other thing that you can do with this, it's hide various different columns. So if I just hide a couple of columns, then hopefully you're going to see the column titles a little bit more clearly. Let me just do that, and then I can expand that column. So it's just giving you a whole load of new functionality that will hopefully be of use. The trend line shows you how that student's performed over time. Now then, the next thing I hear you say is I've got to rank my students. So can I export this? Again, the answer is yes, you can. So let me sort by the judgment grade and bring all of those to the top. Okay, so if this was my final judgment grade, what I could now start to do is to click on download, and that will open up an Excel file, and the Excel file will have in it the however you've sorted this. Okay, so it's just opened on my other screen, so let me drag that into your view like so, and maximize that. Oh, I've just closed it. That was daft. So no, I didn't. I just minimized it. So you can see there, once my screen stops doing what I've asked it to do, you can see there that then here's your judgment grade column. Okay, it's only exported the things that I'm showing in my view, by the way, but you can see the grade difference. And if I were you now, I'd add a rank button to that column there, and I'd start ranking. Yeah, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. down here, and then you can start making adjustments to those rankings within that grade boundary. I really hope that helps you. We think it will help you enormously in just manipulating your data so that you can start doing that ranking within the grades. Okay, so I'm just going to minimize that and go back to this. So hopefully that helps. Now, let me just put these few bits and bobs back on again there. Now, what I didn't say was you can do this at a subject level or at a teaching set level. So for example, if you're GCSE, if you know your big subjects like GCSE English, you can do that sort of export to Excel by teaching set, and you can have your you can have your teachers rank their individual students within their group, and then you can do it as a holistic picture for English or amalgamate your Excel files, etc., etc. So there's lots of different ways that you can use this. Whichever works for you, obviously, is the best way. Just on one other thing on here, I've lost my student 200 just for a moment. That's fine. Let me just look at another student, this one here. If I click on their name, then you will see that I get a very similar view, similar table, but I'm seeing their, sorry about that, I'm seeing their subjects over time. Okay, so if I'm the chemistry teacher, I can look and I can say, oh my goodness, everyone else is predicting them an A star or an A and I'm not. Shall I just question that again myself and have another little look at what I might be able to do with that student and just check my evidence again. Okay, so I really hope those two new features, there are a couple more I'll show you in a moment, but I really hope these two new features help you to make the most out of that that ranking and the export to Excel. Right, let me pop back to where we were. Right, okay, so if I go back to my subject overview here, I promised I'd talk to you about honesty and being fair and honest in our judgments. So let's look at English literature. So I've got an English literature department where I've got a grade 7 for my judgment grades, but it's kind of been where they've been performing for the whole of the year. So I guess our take on that was we would advocate honesty. And we would always say, obviously do all your checks and ask all your questions, but it may be that that is in fact where that subject would have ended up. Okay, so let's just go into English literature. I'm going to go to the student tab again, and then I'm going to sort by prior attainment. And in this case, I guess I'm asking the question of that middle bunch of students here, where their minimum expected grade and personalized target is B grade. They're kind of ending up at the D grade. So question to the English staff, is that correct? Are we happy with that? We might be happy with that, but happy might be the wrong word. But we might need to retain those grades, I guess is what I'm saying. Let's look at student 114, catchy name. So she's got A, B, D across her subjects. If I pop back, obviously when the new feature's released, you won't have to do this, but it was CBC in January. So obviously that makes a little bit of a difference to her progression chances. And in fact, sociology, look, went from a C in January to an A this time round. So she's improved by 2 grades in sociology. Again, another question for you, is that accurate and correct? And possibly you might want to look at the sociology grade as a result of that, but certainly in English she's dropped a grade. So her progression chances are potentially affected by that change in grading. Okay, now, while I'm speaking about this, looking across subjects, I would imagine one of the things that you'd want to do, certainly what I would be doing in parallel to my subject staff, looking at their judgment grades, is I'd probably pull my tutors, my heads of 6, my heads of year 11, my raising standards leaders. I'd probably pull those people into doing some cross-checking at a horizontal level across the curriculum for different students. So let's just have a little looky at that. So that's one way of looking at individual students. I'm going to go home. I'm going to go to the student analysis area, and this is my student performance overview, or SPO. Now, it is showing me all of my year 11, nope, all of my year 13 students and their subjects, and I've got colors indicating how on target they are according to their MEG. So if we take a red, this student here has got an AA star MEG and is being predicted an A star. So they are red. They are on the higher of the two megs, so they're on target. In maths, they are pink because their A grade puts them on the lower of the two. And in chemistry, they are black because they are one below that meg. If I scroll down, there we go. This student here, AA star meg, C grade, 2 below, blue. So that's the colours. Now, so what I can see as a pastoral horizontal approach member of staff is I can look at what people are doing across the board, and I can, just by scrolling down here, look, I can see that this student here, oh look, it's our friend student 200, is lower in chemistry than they are in the other two. So it gives me a quick overview of that. I can export all of this, by the way, to Excel and play with it in Excel too. But there's a couple of powerful tools here. So let's just take chemistry. And let's say I want to just isolate my chemists so that I can see, I think I've got a hunch that chemistry might be under predicting. Let's check it. Click and drag. If you see what I did there, I just clicked the box, dragged it into this blue area that comes up, and drop. And now I've got all my chemists, okay? In terms of chemistry then, I can see by scrolling down, I can see that I've got a bit of a mosaic pattern, but certainly not there. You know, there's students here who are underperforming in chemistry compared to their other subjects. So I'm going to have a word with the chemistry department on, is that right? So it's the same sort of mantra as we were doing earlier. But the important thing is you're cross-referencing and you've got different staff asking the same questions of people. To get rid of that, I just click and drag and it goes, and I've got back all my students again, okay? So there's a couple of other things that I'd like to show you on this page. Compare and edit. If I click on that, I get something called student performance groups come up, okay? So if I apply that, I did not apply the right thing there, beg your pardon. Let me do that again and apply student performance groups. So I have now got various different categories, okay? So what I would want my pastoral staff to do now is to sort of choose a few of them and just ask some questions. So above target in all. Okay, I've got 33 students who are above target in all of my subjects, okay? Is that right? Are you expecting those students to perform out of the box above their megs? You may very well be. Brilliant. But again, it's just another checkpoint. Okay, so make sure that somebody is checking that. Below target in any subject, if I scroll down there, you can see that there's one of their subjects that is out of kilter with the others. That may very well be the case. But again, it's just another check. So make sure that you're having a look at those. And if I just go below target in all, so those 19 students, if they're a surprise to you that they're in this list, then you might want to check. There will be students in that list that you will not be surprised by. But you just want to be sure that someone's got an eye on every single one of your students, so that every single one of them has had a stone unturned and it's been looked at, and you're comfortable and confident as you can be that you've been fair with every single one of them. Okay, I hope that makes sense. If I just go back into that compare edit, if you are key stage 4, then the English, I won't put it on because I haven't got a key stage 4 grade point, but English maths level 5 plus is just a checker that you've got you're awarding the right students the 4s and the 5s, because obviously for your post 16 progression, progression through to your 6th form, that's going to be really key, isn't it, as to whether they have to do any resits in English and maths. And so those decisions have got to be very carefully made indeed. So it's just another way of you pulling out the categories of students. If I just click on it, you can see the categories there, and you can then sort of make some judgment calls in terms of the 3, 4, 5s that you're awarding to your students. And the same applies obviously at CD borderline in Wales and Northern Ireland. Okay. So I'm just going to show you that I'm doing this deliberately. I'm just going to show you that drag and drop again for a moment. I'm choosing a different subject, physics, drag and drop it there, and then I can see my physicists. Now I'm doing that deliberately because I know that in my physics department I've got quite a few blues and blacks. So I'm going to model another, go back to the subject area, and just model another feature for you in a moment that you might want to use at this point in time. So I'm a bit concerned about physics. Seems like seems as if there's a few students who are not quite meeting their megs. So I want to investigate that a bit further. Okay, so let's go back to our subject overview. And let's look at physics. So here's physics. Now, they started off the year on a grade 3. The mocks were disappointing. Then they predicted a grade 3 in January, and now they're saying grade 6. Okay, so it's a very similar pattern to chemistry. Forgive me for concentrating on science. It's just it's habits. I'm a science teacher, so so physics goes in here. Go to students, sort by prior attainment, bring the high prior attainers to the top, and again we see there's a bit of a pattern of underperforming, some at the A grade, but quite a few at the B grade there. Okay, so let's say to the physics department, well, you know, you were actually predicting a grade 3 at various points in the year, so you know, are you being fair? Let's have a look at what it would take to get you to a grade 3. Now, I am not suggesting for a moment that we start making grades up here. I'm just suggesting this might be another avenue that you go down if you feel that a subject has unfairly represented themselves. Okay, so if I drag this thermometer here, I've got a grade 6 box here. I'm going to click on it and I'm going to drag. You can see it moving up and down the thermometer, hopefully. And if I drop it, let me just say I drop it on a grade 4, okay? Then what I'm saying is I'm 8 grades or 8 students or 8 grades lower than I was expecting my physics department to be evening out at. So my feeling as a line management for physics is that they are underrepresenting themselves and therefore their students. Okay, so can we go back to our evidence base that we have when we arrived at that draft judgment for our students in physics, and can we actually be a little bit more realistic with our students? 8 grades, okay? So I'm just going to turn on the what if. And actually, it's turned out that these two lads here have been underrepresented, that actually the work that they were doing across the last 2 years has been more of a B, and this one A grade level. Okay, so I'm just modeling what I think that actually their judgment grades could potentially be. Okay, and again, so now I'm just going to be generic. So this one, yeah, more representative of a B, C. If you can see what I'm doing, I've got to my grade 4. Now, I'm a bit more reassured that the physics department isn't underrepresenting themselves, but we've also been very, very clear about the criteria that we've used to up those grades for those students. It has to be backed up with evidence. So it's just allowed us to have that critical conversation with the physics teacher. So what I can now do, I did this last week and it kicked me out, so I'm not going to press save, but I can save that. What I would recommend you then do is have that sort of conversation between the line manager and the middle leader, or the middle leader and their department. Do the what if, make sure you're then happy with that what if grade, and that you can back it up with evidence and that it's fair, and then pop it back into the your MIS. Once it's in your MIS, you can then extract it again and put remember, you can put as many grade points into Connect as you want. You can put a final judgment grade into Connect. So in effect, you've got a draft and a final judgment grade. You can have 6 if you want. I wouldn't recommend it, but a final and a draft would be sufficient. And then you're actually doing some of the same things as we've been through again, that you're actually saying, okay, does this now feel right? Is this now a little bit more of a representation of our departments and their progress that we've seen from them in the past? Okay, so that's just my recommendation. Obviously, you're going to have your own viewpoints on it. Can I just mention that you will see that I cannot sort by these what if grades on my version at the minute. We have fixed that, and that when we release the new features, that will be fixed. You will be able to sort by those grade columns, okay, and export as you want to. Okay, right. So here's my question. If I've been using Connect for a while, or even if I haven't, if I'm new to Connect, how do I know if that's fair, if the physics department have underrepresented themselves? You know, how do I know from their prediction accuracy that actually a 3 is more like the grade that they might have gotten in the past? So what I can do is I can change that grade point trend on here easily, but I'm going to actually jump into the monitoring accuracy area to show you how I might do this, okay? So this is my grade point selector. The grade point selector we're about to update, and we're updating it to make it far more intuitive than this one. It's going to be far easier for you to use. We'll be updating that with the new feature release, but it's not something new for you to get your head around. It's actually more straightforward than this. So, but for the purposes of right now, I'm going to select my judgment grade, and I'm just going to scroll down, and I'm going to find last year's results set. So that's exam 2018-19. Okay, so I've got 2 grade points that I'm showing here. So what this is allowing me to do is it's allowing me to see the difference between what my departments got last summer for their year 13s last year and what they're saying they're going to get this year. Now, again, I would not advocate for 1 minute that these have to be identical, okay? Because you've got all sorts of stories going on in terms of progress. However, it's just another checkpoint. So look at English. English have, they were 7 last year, and they're predicting 7 again this year. So it may not be fair to start moving students up the scale, because actually that's potentially what they might have gotten. So that's a little a tip that you can just put those 2 grade points on. Let's have a look at physics. I'm just going to sort by difference here, okay? And that's bringing the physics department right to the top, because it's actually the most out of kilter with last summer's results. So what they're saying is that this cohort here is going to underperform by about half a grade. That's what the 0.09 tells me. 0.1 is half a grade per student. So that's saying that the physics department are saying these students are going to underperform by half a grade on last year's students, okay? And yet they weren't saying that earlier on this year. So it might be then that I'm right to question them, that I'm right to say, come on, let's get evidence out again. Let's look at these students again, because I think you're underselling them. The chemistry department was another one we had to look at the beginning, and there's chemistry there. And in actual fact, they're predicting up from last summer. So it may not be as relevant. Unfortunately, some of these top ability students may not have gotten that A grade in chemistry, and that they've been over predicting across the year. So it's just another check. You will know how accurate your staff are in their predictions. You will know that if you've been fortunate enough to be in the school for a while. You will have a feel for how accurate they are in their predictions. So you will be using that intuitively as you go through this process. Okay. And you can put various different other trends in here. I'm just going to do one other trend. I'm going to get rid of my judgment grades, and I'm going to put on the predictions that this lot, that's my cohort from last year, I'm going to put on the predictions that they had just before they walked into the exams last year. So you can see chemistry about half a grade under predicting at this point last year. Physics were under predicting at this point last year. More evidence to pull that judgment grade up and have a look at it again. And so again, if you have that monitoring point in Connect, use it. If you don't have it, you might think, I know how well my staff are predicting. I don't need to put that in, but it's just another checkpoint. Okay, now at this point, I'm just going to be naughty again and jump into my test environment that we're going to release to you to show you the final new release that we've got coming at you this week. So there's home. I'm going to go back into monitoring accuracy. I've got 2 in-year grade points here. So that was my January, and that's my judgment grade. And you will see that there is, I'm going to hover over that so you can read it. You'll see that there's a new column going to appear to you, which is the percentage of students that match between those 2 grade points. Obviously, if you've got last year's grade point on, you won't get that column because they're totally different students. But what it's showing me, you see, is that the biology department are pretty spot on in their judgment between that grade point and that one. I know it's gone down a grade, but it's pretty spot on. But actually, pretty much half of the students have changed a grade. Okay, so that's allowing you to then pop back into the biology department and have a look at who these students are and how their grades are changing, and ask the question. So it seems to be my mantra today. Okay, so hopefully that's of use to you as well. We just wanted to get as many features out to you as quickly as we could so that you were armed with all of the tools that you know we could arm you with in order to get this right. Last area is the strategic area. Oh, I better go back to my starting point. Let me just find my judgment grade trend again, and I'm going to do it that way because I've lost everything. There we go. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll just keep 2 on. Let me find my exams again. There we go. Okay, right. So last area, strategic analysis. So I'm just going to build an ALPS report, an A-level 1, obviously, and I'm going to create that. Now, that brings up a whole load of pages, and I'm just going to pull your attention into a couple of those pages. So this is your strategic overview. If this was your final judgment set and you'd done all of the other stuff and you were happy or as happy as you could be, here's our recommendation that as SLT, this is your sort of last look, your last quality assurance look. So what was your quality indicator last year? So this is your overall progress for all students and all entries. And it was for this school a grade 4, and what I'm predicting is pretty much the same. Now, you may have gone through a transformation this year where you're expecting it to be higher, or I hope not, but lower. But that's just another little check. I'm not suggesting it needs to be identical, but year on year, your progress trends tend to be not too far off each other. So have a check of that. And then the very final check that we'd recommend you make is all the way across here on draw results. This is an achievement overview, granted, but it is a final check of, is that the distribution of grades that you are expecting to see? Okay, so don't forget down the bottom here, this bottom row here is a totals row, okay? So I know that many of us would set A star to B targets at A level. Is 60% around about what you're expecting? Because if it's not, then something's wrong. If it is, then you're potentially on the right track, and you've got that for each individual subject and your grade distribution. So you will know what this has looked like in the past, or you will know what you're expecting it to look like based on the students that are sitting in front of you. And you've got that for GCSE as well, by the way. You've got that same table. So, you know, do the same there in terms of 9 to 7, 9 to 5. Okay. Right. I think that's me gone through most of it. I would just like to pop back to the PowerPoint just for a moment and just remind you then of a couple of things. The first thing is that we are in the final stages of testing these new features, and I am sincerely hoping that we get these out to you as soon as we can so that you can get on with this and get going for it. If you are using ALPS and Connect Interactive at Key Stage 5, just a reminder that we have opened that out to you at Key Stage 4 free of charge. So do, if you find it useful, if you think it's useful at Key Stage 5, please, please, please do make full use of it at Key Stage 4 as well, or vice versa, of course. A reminder of just the support that you've got and the other webinars that we've got. You don't need to type in if you want a benefit, would benefit from methodology. Just book yourself on. There's various on the websites. And I really, really hope that that's been helpful. We are around. We're not. We're working from home, but normal service from ALPS and the ALPS team. So do call us if you have any queries. Do email us if you have any questions and you want one of us to talk to you or go through anything with you, then we're more than happy to do that. As I say, I really hope this has been helpful. Such difficult times for you, really difficult times, and we do wish you all the best with these judgment grades and making sure that you're managing your staff in a positive way and getting what you want out of it. So I'm going to leave the webinar running for a little bit, just in case John's still furiously typing back answers to you. But in the meantime, thanks again, and do stay safe, won't you? Bye.